And after that, in the large case along the opposite wall, you'll see who really had fun with the women of Star Trek. Our costume designer again, Bill Tice. These clothes were very innovative for their time. The fabrics were all the very latest synthetics because, who knows, in the future, plastics might be all we have left to make clothing out of. The golden orange costume on the right, worn in Ilana Troyes, is constructed of plastic table mats.
Now that is innovative.
The science fiction framework allowed Bill Tice unusual freedom. His costumes contributed to the futuristic look of the show as much as the set designs did. The Rose Delight in the back on the left was worn in Who Mourns for Adonais.
I remember. You know, the only thing holding that bodice up is the weight of the cape in the back. Nothing secures it to the body. The skirt just hooks at the waist and drapes. And notice how much navel is revealed in all these clothes.
The censors don't approve of navels. On the popular sitcom I Dream of Jeannie, Barbara Eden's Arabian Nights costume was considered all right only if she wore a big jewel in her navel. Now, it's true that from a 1990s perspective, these costumes could be seen as sexist, in that they do display women as sex objects. Even the Starfleet uniform, seen here in several examples, had a revealing snugness and a very short skirt for women. But at least it was comfortable for both sexes.
And just remember, perfectly decent women wore miniskirts out in public then.
In the 60s, when we were all in revolt against the gray flannel suit, such clothing seemed liberating, a breath of fresh air.
The same perspective could be applied to the peculiar aversion to matrimony evident in Star Trek. Turn back to the wall behind you and look at the section labeled Wives. In these episodes, marriage is portrayed as a last resort before death for Dr. McCoy, as something Jim Kirk did only because he lost his mind, and for Spock because he lost control.
And no positive role models are provided to counteract this image. There are no married couples on board the Enterprise, despite agreement among space travel theorists that marriage would provide needed stability during long space flights.
It's all a very 60s revolt against convention. It wasn't cool to be married.
The network censors were concerned with convention, however. Look at the memo beside the stills of The Paradise Syndrome, where the censors insist that it's better for a female character to die than to be left behind pregnant without a husband. We'll talk more about the women of Star Trek, but before you move around the corner, turn back to the big case behind you and look at these set pieces. The art director, Matt Jeffries, came from a naval background, so he brought a true-life military look to the ship's interiors. Here, you have the navigation and helm control unit.
This is about the only piece of the original set left. Most of it got thrown away after '69 when the show was canceled.
If we knew then what we know now.
There are props around. Afterwards, people take something home to remember the show by. You've already seen some of the weapons. To the right is a smaller case with some of the more everyday items we used. The universal translator, the ever-handy tricorder, and that ubiquitous precursor to the cellular telephone, the communicator, as well as a few of Dr. McCoy's medical instruments.
I hope it won't disillusion them to hear that some of those state-of-the-future instruments are actually modernist salt shakers.
That time it was the prop department being innovative. But we did present a golden future for medical science. Quick, painless, non-invasive, but chock full of bedside manner.
And advice you didn't need.
If you happen to be a Vulcan with your heart where your kidney should be.
Right. Let's get back to the issue of women. If you'll walk around the corner to your right. As we saw earlier on, Gene Roddenberry made the captain's second in command a woman. She was called simply Number One. Here she is with Mr. Spock as the junior science officer. After NBC vetoed the idea, the role of Number One was absorbed by Spock, and the same actress, Majel Barrett, appeared as Nurse Chapel, a more traditional role for a woman.
You can see in the photo that she's blonde now and has a lower neckline. No doubt also more traditional for women.
By the premiere episode, Nichelle Nichols had joined us as Lieutenant Uhura, the only woman on the bridge and the only black as well. A beautiful, intelligent, and talented actress, Nichelle was never given much to do but be beautiful and intelligent. Uhura was always a positive role model, but a rather passive one. Vulcan women were allowed to be leaders, such as the matriarch T'Pau, seen here in a stately photograph. But T'Pau was safely far away on Vulcan, not on Earth or on the Enterprise. as if the idea of equality for women was fine, but the actuality was just too much for network television. You should now be at the quest for utopia. The longing for the perfect world has probably inspired more science fiction writers than any other single urge, except, maybe, the sheer love of adventure. During its 3 seasons, Star Trek explored a number of possible utopias, from the totalitarian model in Return of the Archons to the drug-induced bliss of This Side of Paradise. Most proved to be false. Gene Roddenberry was not a fan of organized religion or cults, and as you can see in the episode The Way to Eden, the dropout utopias of the 60s drug culture appealed to him even less. He wanted progress and commitment in his utopia. For Gene, the real utopia was not even the future Earth of the 23rd century. It was on board the Starship Enterprise, heading out for parts unknown.
As you continue into the next area on your left, you'll see on the left-hand wall the posters from the 6 Star Trek movies. The first of these, Star Trek the Motion Picture, was released just before Christmas 1979, 10 years after the cancellation of the original series. By then, Star Trek had passed from the ranks of a lowly television series into the realm of national myth. Who made this happen? It was not myself or Leonard or any of us or even Gene. It was the fans.
The series was never a hit. In 3 seasons, we never made it into the top-rated 25 shows, which is why we were canceled. But there were people out there watching who the ratings system overlooked. A lot of them. And they were very, very loyal.
They wanted us back.
They wrote letters.
They organized conventions. 6 movies later, and a new Star Trek series just finishing its 5th season, they're still going strong. The exhibit wall opposite the posters is a tribute to the enthusiasm and loyalty of the host of Star Trek fans, without whom there would have been no movies and there would be no next generation.
Look at the care and artistry a fan put into building this Vulcan harp, which he learned to play rather well. The prop I used was cheap theatrics compared to this.
And on the left, look at the comic books. In French and Japanese, Star Trek novelizations are published around the world in many languages. And today, thanks to the fans, Star Trek is the top syndicated show in television history. They watch Star Trek as far away as Tibet.
Tibet? I wonder what they make of it there.
Just wait. Sooner or later, a fan letter will arrive to let you know. And so we reach the end of our tour. We have just one more thing to say to you. Leonard?
Live long and prosper.